This Impact Wrestling review was brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Try it, and the next time MVP doesn't want someone to interfere in a match, he'll just, ban them from ringside. I thought last week's Impact was a damn good show. If you disagree, that's your prerogative. I found it really enjoyable. But oh man, if TNA were looking for the best way to follow up on that, delivering a show that felt an awful lot like someone left the door open so Vince Russo could sneak back into the house was not the way to do it. Now this Impact wasn't all bad, but it was a far cry from what they need to be delivering right now, and therein lies the problem. I actually like that they started with Eric Young and Abyss fighting all over the place. Too often these shows fall into the same old formula of beginning with an opening promo segment, so it's refreshing to break that up once in a while. But this fight went on for like 10 minutes straight. It felt too drawn out to me, so much so that the initial burst of excitement you got from seeing the show start with action for a change kind of burned itself out. I appreciate them trying to shake up the format, but this just felt needlessly long. I think if they'd cut out the brawling backstage and started with them heading for the ring, that would have been better. I mean, the fighting was alright, but I thought it got the pacing of the show off to a slow start when it went as long as it did. The end made me scratch my head, too. Eric gets beaten down and sent to the hospital, meaning that he can't be handcuffed to Abyss at ringside during the world title match main event. And that leads me to a very important question. Why in the blue hell does someone need to be handcuffed to Abyss during the world title match main event when you could just ban Abyss from ringside? Something was a bit off with the formatting of the show this week. The following segment would have been a good time for a promo to break things up after that brawling went so long, but instead they go right into another match. And I like a good amount of wrestling as much as anyone, but the balance between wrestling and talking definitely felt a little skewed here. And this wasn't even a matchup that I wanted to see in the first place. Bobby Lashley has always been a guy that kind of needed someone else to take the lead in the ring to bring out the best in him. And he wasn't bad here. I thought he was alright, actually. But he definitely benefits from working with a ring general. And EC3 has been a revelation as a character these last few months, but he hasn't really been established as a wrestler yet, and is still unproven in that capacity. Not saying that he can't prove that he's got the goods in the ring, just saying that he hasn't had a chance to show it yet. So I didn't think this was the right matchup or the right feud for either guy, quite frankly. The match itself was okay, I didn't think it was half bad, but with both guys in a position where they shouldn't be jobbing right now, there's no really satisfying way to resolve this. And the finish was really weird. I do appreciate that they protected EC3 from doing the job, but this just came out of nowhere and it felt pretty damn awkward. I don't know what the writers are going for with Willow. If he's trying to take out all the people he blames for costing him the world title a couple months ago, fine. But that hasn't been explained to us yet. And so far, his actions have been more confusing than anything else. He destroys Rockstar Spud in a way that makes Spud look oddly sympathetic, and also gave Spud the DQ victory in their match. And then this week, instead of simply throwing EC3 back into the ring, he attacks EC3, thus giving him the DQ victory over Lashley, then takes too much time setting up the ladder, allowing EC3 to escape. I get that this is supposed to be some kind of dark, twisted, unstable, unpredictable version of Jeff Hardy, but in doing this with him, they've turned Hardy into a crazy person with no method to his madness. And as a result, his actions don't really accomplish what he wants them to. In fact, so far it seems like they're doing the opposite. And for the record, Bobby Lashley, you just dodged a bullet. The new American icon of wrestling, EC3, is going to let you off with just a warning. But don't push your luck. A few weeks ago, I said that TNA needed to be careful with Gunner while he's playing up the military background stuff, because if you play it up too much, it becomes, for lack of a better word, preachy. And I feel like that happened a little bit in this segment with James Storm. I thought Gunner's promo was okay, and the former Marine stuff does seem to get over and make fans want to root for Gunner to an extent, but if you beat people over the head with it, it starts to feel manipulative, which can then lead to resentment. It's like when WWE air a video of John Cena doing all this work for Make-A-Wish, making him look like the greatest guy in the world, but you still want to boo him afterward because it feels like they're trying to force you to like him rather than just letting it happen organically. It's the same principle here. The former Marine stuff can work. I just think it would be better if they didn't try to hammer it in quite so hard. Okay, seriously. Did Gunner learn nothing from John Cena's dad? You introduce your father, who conveniently is in the front row, you put all this focus on him, you make a huge deal about how close you guys are and how much he means to you and how you're going to make him so proud of you, and what the hell did you think was going to happen, Gunner? Did you really think James Storm was going to leave that alone? Come on, man.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
James Storm was really good here, everyone played their parts well, and Gunner's dad actually sold that beer bottle shot great. I thought this angle was really effective in putting more heat on the feud, making it more personal, which is something the writers have done really well with so far, and I'm happy to see the feud continue for a while. I just wish the setup to the attack had felt a little less forced. So the burgeoning Gail Kim Lady Tapa feud amounted to a one-and-done match that Gail wins clean, and that's it. It's about what you'd expect. The match is just okay, and it was only that good because Gail carried the whole thing. And just like that, Tapa is now gone from the company. Yes! The fact that Tapa's TNA career was apparently on the line in this match, I was not even aware of. They didn't even try to get that point across. But I guess this is why the whole feud was so rushed and truncated last week. They just wanted to get it over and done with and move on as quickly as possible, and that's just fine with me. Tapa was lousy. She wasn't ready for TV, and I will not miss her.
Your posterior better contact someone at once!
Anyway, the chatter I'm hearing now is that supposedly Tapa was just not very dedicated to improving her wrestling skills. And she's someone who really needed to improve. If she wasn't working her ass off to do that, then TNA cutting the cord on her was definitely the right call. And speaking of calls, I sincerely hope that Dixie Carter makes one to Ivelisse Velez and fixes the mistake TNA made last year in passing her up in favor of Tapa before the Impact Wrestling Twitter account is flooded with I told you so's. Or, you could sign Shauna or something. That would be cool, too. Let me get this straight, TNA. You have a brand new knockout debut last week. In Brittany's very first match, you put her over Gail Kim, the top knockout in your company. And the next week, not only does she not even appear on the show, but you don't have any follow-up with her whatsoever? None? Brittany doesn't get a promo or a backstage segment or a video package or anything?
You people are fools!
Okay, about this Beautiful People promo. I did appreciate some of the character work here. How Velvet Sky still isn't sure about reforming the group because she felt like she was in Angelina's shadow back in the day and didn't get a lot of respect. That makes sense. And it plays off of real-life sentiment that a lot of people felt back in 2008, 2009, etc. That's smart writing. Also smart were Madison Rayne's reasons for not wanting back in because the other two really did treat her like crap when she first joined the group. Although why she's cool with Velvet but not Angelina now, I'm not really sure. But Madison's like a 5-time singles champion now, so she doesn't need to be part of a group anymore and wants no part of it. That also makes sense. There were several nods to history and character here that were actually really well thought out. But the same criticism I had last week goes for this too. For starters, a lot of this was just rehashing last week's promo, and all three of these women still looked and sounded bored. Those little teases where Angelina was acting kind of snide and condescending to Madison were more interesting and felt more real than everything else in this segment put together. You want to get the beautiful people back together? So be it. But it does not work if they're baby faces. They absolutely must be heels, and you can't even argue that. Angelina turned heel on Madison backstage. Good. Thank you. Hopefully Velvet turns next. I still don't want to see the beautiful people back, but if you turn them heel, that's at least a step in the right direction. No joking. No sarcasm. No smartass. I'm dead serious when I say this. Angelina Love needs to gain some weight. Badly. I don't know if this is anorexia or what, but someone backstage needs to talk to her about this because she looks like she's been starving herself. This is actually kind of frightening to me. It cannot be healthy for her to be that skinny. It can't. I mean, goddamn it, woman. Eat a few cheat meals during the week. A pizza, a cheeseburger, a steak, a bowl of pasta. I mean, get some protein and some carbs in your body. Eat something. Please. It would appear that TNA wants to drag out this feud with the Wolves and the Bromance for a while longer before they switch the tag titles for realsies. I guess because they only have 3 tag teams to work with at the moment. And that is such a deflating thought because this triple threat tag match proved exactly what a ridiculous third wheel the Bromance really are in the tag team title picture. The Wolves are great, Tigre Uno and Sonata are great, and when those 4 guys were carrying the action, we had something good here. But, unsurprisingly, the Bromance did absolutely nothing but drag this thing down. When they went on the offense, the pace ground to a screeching halt. They completely interrupted the whole flow of the match. They can't keep up with the other 2 teams, and they're not even trying to.
You guys suck.
This is really frustrating. The Wolves versus Tigre and Sonata is a feud that I'd really like to see. But you have to add the Bromance when they've got no business being in there just because they've got the tag titles, even though the only reason they have them is because they're the only heel team the writers have to work with right now. God, I hope TNA work out new contracts for Bad Influence, because until they get an actually viable heel tag team in the mix, I'm afraid it's just going to be more of this stuff. And that's already starting to piss me off. You know, about this segment with Bully Ray and Dixie Carter's office. I accepted Bully's reason for turning face. He didn't want Anderson throwing him in a coffin to be what people remembered him for. He hates Dixie Carter and everything she stands for, blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. It's not much of an explanation, but I'll take it. They probably just turned him face to help them draw when they go to the Hammerstein Ballroom anyway. I thought the production here was top-notch. Really good camera work, the music felt appropriate, Bully's promo was great, I loved Bobby Roode getting the jump on him, that was great. So I thought this was an awesome segment, except for the fact that Bully Ray cut his entire promo to an empty chair. What the fuck was that? How the hell did he not see that there was no one sitting in the chair? Did he think Dixie was just sitting like this with her back turned to him the whole time? This is mind-boggling to me, because it was a damn good segment otherwise, but Jesus Christ, this was absolutely idiotic.
This whole show is ridiculous.
So the main event is Magnus versus Samoa Joe in a lockdown rematch for the world title. You know what this reminded me of? A Knockouts match from a while back. I think it was Gale versus Mickey, where they wanted to make absolutely sure that Madison Rayne would not interfere. So therefore, the only possible course of action was to suspend Madison above the ring in a fucking cage. That's what I was thinking of when MVP decides that the best way to prevent Abyss from interfering in this match is to handcuff himself to Abyss at ringside. Where the fuck do I begin? Good grief! You could see Vince Russo's fingerprints all over this. He must be back in some capacity because this had a whole bunch of his biggest classic trademarks. Like when characters are faced with some kind of dilemma, instead of doing the simple thing, the logical thing, the smart thing that any rational human being would do in that situation, they end up doing the stupidest, most mind-numbing, nonsensical shit they possibly can. How is handcuffing yourself to Abyss supposed to stop him from interfering in the match? If anything, that inevitably makes the problem worse by creating even more chaos at ringside. So MVP and Abyss start fighting, because no one saw that coming apparently, and then MVP takes the handcuffs off. He takes the handcuffs off for no reason, just so he can get the bag of tacks and throw it up the ramp. As if that would actually stop Abyss from getting the bag, now that you just took the handcuffs off. And once the cuffs are off, does MVP then do the smart thing, like, I don't know, handcuffing Abyss to the ring ropes to stop him from interfering in the match, like MVP was supposed to be out there to do in the first place, which you just saw work perfectly well with Gunner earlier in the show? Of course not. And why? Because that would make too much sense. That's why. And well, guys, you'll never guess in a million years what happened next. You'll never guess. Now unrestrained by the handcuffs, Abyss got the upper hand over MVP and interfered in the match. Great job, MVP.
Urge to kill rising.
Abyss throws a chair at Samoa Joe, which almost completely missed him, by the way. It certainly didn't look like it hit him in the head, although Joe had to sell it like it did, which looked terrible. Why they didn't reshoot that spot, I have no clue. But God knows that Magnus still needed that to happen, because when you have the first British world champion in a major American company in 108 years, and a huge selling point to your UK audience, the only logical thing to do is to book him like a total geek who can't win a single match without all sorts of overbooked shenanigans. So Magnus wins and retains the world title because MVP's asinine plan to handcuff himself to Abyss at ringside somehow failed to stop Abyss from getting involved in the match that was happening 2 feet away. Imagine that.
Congratulations, you just renewed your idiot license.
And I hate to point out the obvious here, but it seems to me that there was a very easy solution to this problem. If you don't want Abyss to interfere in the match,
ban him from ringside.
If you think that won't stop him, sequester him backstage, surround him by security guards. Hell, tell him he's fired if he interferes, for God's sake. There were any number of simple, logical ways to go about this that would have made perfect sense to do and would have accomplished exactly what MVP wanted. But no, we have to go out of our way to contrive this bullshit with the handcuffs, and then contrive this idiotic way out of the handcuffs, and make MVP look like a fucking moron just so Abyss could interfere in the match in a spot that was half botched. My God, this was stupid.
Oh, my brother, testify!
Joe and Magnus had a really good match for the TV title at Bound for Glory 2012. And the reason it was so good was because it was a simple feud with a simple issue that needed to be resolved and got resolved with a satisfying finish that didn't try to muddy the waters with a lot of unnecessary, overcomplicated bullshit like all this contrived, distracting nonsense like we had here. Hey TNA, you ever hear of KISS? Keep it simple, stupid? How about trying that right now? Last week's Impact was TNA delivering what to me was a really enjoyable show despite some of its flaws. This week's Impact was an example of TNA once again reverting to form, ignoring the basic fundamentals, and trying to get so cute and overbooked and overcomplicated with various angles, match finishes, the staging of certain things, and what have you, that along the way they somehow managed to avoid actually accomplishing anything. The few bright spots here, like the Angelina Love heel turn, James Storm cracking the beer bottle over Gunner's dad's head, and management kicking Lady Top out of the curb, were not enough to redeem this one. This was not a good Impact in my opinion. TNA can, should, and really need to do better than this. A lot better. But try telling them that. Over. Out.